Hello, everybody. I'm John DeBenedictis, Executive Director for National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada, and we're here for another session of Behind the Bench. And today, my guests are AC Lang and Hollie Babut, or Babut.
You got it, Babut, yeah.
Babut, and we're talking about growing the women's game. So just before we get started, let me just tell you a little bit about association. National Soccer Coaches Association is membership-based organization, and we're all run by volunteers. So we're obviously hoping that we get as many members as possible so that we can continue to offer additional education opportunities for all the coaches. Pretty excited that since we started our Behind the Bench series about just about almost 10 months ago, we've had coaches from 27 different countries, or managers, as they say in some countries, register for our sessions. So this was actually one of the dreams of our late president, Tony Waiters, to try and help coaching education, additional coaching education above and beyond all the licenses, not just to Canadian coaches, but to coaches around the world, and to showcase some of the coaches we have here in Canada. And as you know, Canada, we produce some pretty good players all of a sudden. Some are top 10 in men, and in the women, we've got the #1 leading goal scorer of all time from Canada. So I think we have something that we'd like to offer to the rest of the world. And we've got AC Lang here, and I'll just tell you a little bit about her. AC, I used to coach her brother, Jan, and when she's the younger sister to Jan, and when we'd have a training session, AC would always be in the background, and we'd see her kicking a ball around, and then at the end we'd have her join in some of our scrimmage. So she was a few years younger, but you could tell the passion from AC right from the get-go. I remember watching her on the side and saying, "Wow, she just loves soccer," and she's going to tell us a little bit about that in a minute. And Hollie, I just got a chance to meet you with the Pickering Soccer Club. And she's done a phenomenal job with Pickering, in charge of Grassroots. So AC, let's start with you. Give us a bit more about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, John, for the introduction. And yeah, guilty as charged. Definitely always had that passion for the game, as you were able to see, definitely from a young age. But yeah, I was born in Germany. We moved here when I was about 7. I went back and forth a few times, so I had a little bit of experience in both the German and the Canadian soccer system, which is cool to always contrast and compare the different experiences. I went to the University of Guelph for my undergraduate degree, and I played there for 4 years. I was the captain for 3 years there. I completed my degree in applied human nutrition. When I finished, I had about a year or two gap between my master's and my undergrad, so I worked for the Guelph Soccer Club during that time, which is when I got introduced to a few really key role models in my life who helped to inspire me to try to develop the women's game. So that was influential for sure. And over the past few years, I've been involved with League One now, first with North Miss and now with Guelph Union. So getting into coaching there a little bit as well. So hope that gives a little bit more background to why I'm involved in the game.
Fantastic. And Hollie, give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, John. Like you said, I am the Grassroots Director at Pickering Football Club. Started my coaching journey a few years ago, but obviously the passion, like all of us, it stems from playing. So grew up playing in Durham region until I went on to play university in Iowa in the States. Got my degree in health science there. And then from there, my coach challenged me to continue on my coaching and also playing pathway, which pushed me to Norway to play there for a short stint. Unfortunately, I had troubles with my visa, so I wasn't there too long. But great experience all in all to just experience something different than the Canadian and the American system. So after that, I came home from Norway. I really started on my coaching pathway. I'm really thankful for a lot of great mentors, both in the playing and the coaching aspect, who pushed me to the coaching world that I'm in today. And I've met some really great people along the way, like AC and John yourself. So really excited to have this conversation about the importance of growing women in football.
Great. So we're gonna just backtrack. I'm gonna share my screen for a second. And I don't know if you guys can see it. You know, you guys see my screen at this point?
Yep.
All right, so growing the women's game is our topic. And so AC, she had, I saw an article in the Toronto Star newspaper, Canada's top newspaper, biggest newspaper in Toronto. And the Toronto Star had a big article about what AC was doing and trying to get more females involved in coaching. And, you know, over the years, you know, this is a course that I
You muted yourself, John.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. I think I muted myself. So there was a course that I did in Florida. And this one here was another one in Toronto, as I believe a C or, and you'll take a look. So in this one in Florida, there were about 300 coaches, different national, advanced national, premier. And this is done by the United Soccer Coaches or the NSCAC. And of all the coaches, there's about, I'm guessing 12 to 15% were female. The rest were male coaches. This is another course. It was pre-B license. And as you can see, there's not one female coach in this group. This is a course we did in Toronto with Tony Waiters, did a license course for goalkeeping. And you'll see that there are very few females in here. I think we're at 5%. Actually, your brother's in this picture, AC, if you look closely. And then we had our own clinic here, our first convention last year. This is the assistant coach from Portugal. And in his session, out of over 50 coaches, I think we had about 4 or 5 females. So not a lot of females. But I did notice something here we did this course at Crescent School. We brought in the state director for coaching California by the name of Carl Dawazian. And his expertise was in grassroots and very geared to younger children, and he's very psychological in some of the things he presented. And we targeted a lot of teachers who also coach in elementary school. And we found that there a lot more females came to this course, almost 33%. So just start with you, AC, in your mission here with starting from that article and getting more females in the game.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to touch on what we've done over the past few months with the Elevate campaign. First though, John, if I could start with a few maybe behavioral expectations for this webinar. I know that this topic of women's advancement is sometimes a little bit touchy. People feel nervous saying the wrong thing. And I just want to put everyone at ease that if we can agree on 2 main things, that this conversation is going to go super well and everyone's going to have a good time. The first and foremost is for me that girls and women belong in sport. That's a non-negotiable for me. And then the second one being that girls and women bring value to the sports system. So as long as we can agree on these 2, core beliefs, I think let's just go forward and have a good conversation. And that's to everyone who's attending this webinar today who might be asking questions, etc. So just want to start with that. But to touch on the Elevate campaign, so it all kind of started when Carmelina started the League One Players Advisory Group back, I think it was late 2019. And that was a really powerful move that she did because it brought all of these women together from across the league who generally hadn't been in the kind of space and given the kind of voice to really talk about what their priorities are. So that was a really powerful move by Carm, the commissioner at the time. And when it became apparent that throughout 2020 we wouldn't really be able to see the field, we kind of shifted our focus to hopefully making an impact off of the field. So our first priority on that goal was getting more women coaching, because we all kind of discussed that not many of us had women coaches growing up, and that's really an unfortunate statistics that we're continuing to live every day. I think that probably still holds true for many girls playing the game today. So with that, our goal in mind of hoping to get more females involved, we wanted to create a fundraiser to raise money to fund 5 C licenses for female coaches within the league, which, I mean, that's not a huge goal, and five licenses doesn't necessarily change the whole system, but we just wanted to kind of set a priority for ourselves as a group. So we launched the campaign, I think it was in November. So basically we were selling posters of Kadisha Buchanan and Jessie Fleming. So there was a kind of a dual purpose there to get more role models up in girls' rooms, posters of role models, and to hopefully also get more role models as female coaches. So we kicked that off in November, and we hit our goal by I think mid-December is when we hit it. And part of that as well was Carm came through for us with her legacy grant that she received from the Canadian Olympic Committee. So those two things in tandem kind of resulted in us being able to achieve our monetary goal. And then over the past few weeks, actually, I've had a few discussions with Canada Soccer, some people involved in Canada Soccer and Dino from League One, and they're actually able to stretch the money that we raised to increase the amount of licenses to 40. So they announced that today, which was really exciting for us. So 40 women in League One are now going to be doing their C license. So that's the first step in the Canadian coaching system, and we're really proud of that accomplishment.
That's fresh news, just out today.
Yeah, just today.
Breaking
Good
news.
Breaking news.
NSCAC breaking news. So we're the first. You heard it here. Just didn't mention Carmelina Moscato, just for the viewers who don't know her. She played on our national team, and she participated in our Olympic team as well. And we had her at the convention as one of our speakers. Excellent speaker. And now I believe she's just on a new position somewhere in the Bahamas. I believe the technical director for women's program in the Bahamas. Nice place to be, I must admit. Nice and cold here. We're based in Toronto. And Hollie, how was it for you getting the licenses? Some of those pictures that I showed where there really weren't a lot of female coaches in the courses. Did you experience that, and how was it for you going through?
Yeah, those pictures are a great representation of how I felt in those courses at times. Maybe 1 or 2 of us were in those courses, and especially as you go forward into the stream of your C, your B, your children's license, you don't really, that ratio starts to go smaller and smaller. I feel lucky enough that within those groups of coaches and the learning facilitators from Canada Soccer and Ontario Soccer, that I've been surrounded with a lot of support. So I don't think I can really touch on those stories where you hear those horror stories of women not feeling like they were a part of a group. Although it was challenging and I was definitely in a vulnerable position, I had to get over that personally because being the only female in the room, you don't really have that tangible to say, hey, I'm like you, hey, I do things like you. You're the only one or one of the only ones. So you have to go in with the right mindset. And understanding that you're there for a reason. You do belong and you have a position of power as long as you use your voice correctly. So like I said, I've been pretty lucky to have that support within those groups of coaches. And since then, I think I've been able to find my voice a bit more as a coach. But again, those licenses, they're only so long. A big part of it is what you do after. And I think that's kind of where AC and we discussed a lot, is I think that's where the gaps are. It's what happens after your licenses or between those that really matter, because those are your day-to-days. You're experiencing things that you might run into people who don't see people or don't see females in the sport, or maybe they shouldn't have that position of power. So I think that's something that we need to change, is just making sure that between those gaps, between those licenses, that we're doing something to help these females.
All right. Do you think a lot of females maybe drop out? Maybe because they're just not they just feel as though they don't see very many females in there, so they drop out when maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah,
For some,
yeah.
you know.
I think so. Both as players and as coaches, I think that's something that we need to fix within our system. I think it's too easy for females in general to leave the sport. AC, what was the term you used? A silent exit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
I think that's
silent
really a
exit of
really
women.
powerful way to put it. You know, we don't really take the time to understand why these females are leaving the game. So I think it's conversations that we definitely need to have. But I think now we're starting to go in a really good direction. I think we're taking the small steps necessary to help those females in the game. And especially with this news today, with a C license that's all female, I think that's brilliant. I think that's gonna really help shift things in the right direction. And all thanks to AC for taking that small step forward. I know she doesn't give herself enough credit. That's incredible. Without her starting that campaign, this wouldn't have happened.
That's fantastic. And is that course, is it going to be all females taking a course, or is it, are they just paying and they're going to be blended in with males? Do you know that yet?
It's going to be all women and all women facilitators as well. So Canada Soccer really went out of their way to make sure that they would be facilitated by women. So that's another big step, another big aspect of it. But John, I want to touch on what you asked about women dropping out. So I think it's been known for a very long time that girls and women drop out of sport at a higher rate than men and boys. And that starts really young. It starts, you know, from 9, 10 onwards, we start to see girls dropping out of sport. So you have them dropping out, you know, in the teens, 12, 13, etc. In the late teens, right before university, like 16, 17, 18, and then again after university. So I'm kind of at that point now where I'm post-university. I'm done my university education, but I'm looking around and a lot of my peers are dropping out of soccer. So there's kind of 3 waves where women start to drop out. And what happens when we have women drop out in such high numbers is there's just less of them. So they actually are going to keep getting stuck at 25% representation, because that's probably the approximate amount that are left at that age, right? So dropping out is a huge, huge part of this conversation.
Do you think, I mean, you know, there's always, even in the men, you know, there's always the ones who want to go at the highest level. But when they don't reach that highest level, I mean, I see this with my own kids, is that, you know, they're finding recreational teams to continue playing the game because they love it so much. And, you know, they're playing onto their 30s, 40s, and I've even seen, you know, seniors playing soccer, men. For females, are they not looking to maybe continue, even if they don't want to play it? You know, they realize maybe they can't, not good enough to play League One, but what's there for them after that? Want to just play recreational soccer and then maybe get into coaching? What are you seeing there? Anyone of you try that one?
Hollie, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So I think there are different leagues. There's something that can fit everybody. You have the OWSL. There's co-ed leagues for women to be involved with as well. There's League One. But I think it's just a sense of a belonging at the end of the day. I think men or female, we play to have fun. We play to be with our friends. There's that social aspect. Aside from kind of reaching that highest potential, it's not for everybody. So I think there's a huge part of that conversation where it's, why are you playing? So if you start to see your friends drop out, well, then you're probably going to drop out. So I think it's finding that balance and that position for everybody to find a league that suits them the best, but also to be respected within those areas as well. There's a lot of both players and coaches, like I was saying, there's moments where they're probably in these environments and they don't even question it. They're like, nope, that's an intolerable environment. And that's the reason why they're going to drop out. It's not always just, hey, I'm not having fun anymore. I think there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that create those environments for women to leave the sport.
Right. Good.
Yeah, and when you think about when you think about women feeling welcome and creating an environment where women want to be a part, a lot of that has to do with representation from a top-down kind of level. I know that for me personally, if I see that an organization has a lot of women in leadership positions or just in positions throughout the organization, I'm much more likely to feel welcome there. And I think if you're looking at boards across the nation, Canada Soccer Board, provincial boards, if you're looking at technical staff positions across the country, like women are so underrepresented still in those positions, and it does have an impact when you look up and you see no one that looks like you. And I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I'm just going to share a picture here. This was, oh my gosh, gotta get this right. Yeah, you're talking about boards. I mean, this is a FIFA board, I believe, of technical committees. This was taken a few years back when Latini and what's his name were here. Oh my gosh, I'm running a blank here. Shep Blatter. I don't see any females in this picture. And just as you said, AC, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That they're not. Maybe there's not enough of them moving up. Yeah, you want to just continue on that? And what do you think we can do to solve the problem?
I mean, yeah, FIFA is not historically known as an organization that elevates or supports women. I mean, it took so long for the first Women's World Cup to even happen after the Men's World Cup was started in 1991, like way later than you'd think. And they called it the M&M World Championship because they didn't want to associate the World Cup with women. So yeah, FIFA is definitely part of the problem. When organizations at the top like that are able to get away with such little representation, not only of women, but of diverse populations, then it sets a precedent for organizations around the world to not really have to stretch or go through the extra effort to get women involved, because at this point, it will take effort, intentional effort to get women involved. They're not going to just come because the environment we've created doesn't necessarily support them. And as we've seen recently in our own country, women who are at the top who leave, we don't do a good enough job of finding out why they left and making sure that that never happens again.
Yeah, and we talked to AC about that one stat, which was shocking to me when I heard it, was the amount of years it's going to take to receive equity between men and female. I think just in general in the world is close to 250 years. And that's if we don't do anything about it.
Right.
So
well, that's part of what we're here for.
Exactly.
We're gonna hope to certainly shorten that. That's yeah, it sounds super long, but I do think that there's improvements coming on. But go ahead, Hollie, continue on.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say it. I don't think any of us would accept the fact that we're gonna have to wait 250 years for that to happen. So there's things that we can do now to affect change and reduce that, hopefully considerably. But I think we all need to start looking at what we can do as individuals and take those smaller steps forward. I imagine most of the listeners here are in the soccer world in some capacity. And if you're not, hopefully you still have an impact working with women in some general aspect. But if you're a coach in this webinar, ask yourself, what are you doing to help this cause? What are you doing within your everyday practices to support women in sport? What are you doing to empower it? What are you doing to market it? There's small things that we can all do to make that a little bit more tangible for us. We shouldn't have to wait 250 years. Let's start to reduce that based on what we can all do.
I agree with you. I mean, here at the National Soccer Coaches, we're all volunteers. We're looking for more female volunteers. We need to get them involved so that they can, we can get more of them involved. We want to help, but we need them to step up and volunteer that help, and then, get more females involved, because we do find that our membership is, again, like everything else, is membership mostly males. So We hope that we're going to be a platform to help females get more involved. There's a question here from one of our listeners. What's your take on two prominent player coaches leaving the CSA to coach elsewhere? That's both Moscato and Wilkinson. Anyone want to take a stab at that one? Hollie?
I think AC, you got this one covered.
Yeah, I mean, I never want to speak out of turn about someone else's experiences because both of those women's experiences are going to be very unique. And I assure you that not anyone except for them has the full picture of what actually happened and led to those decisions. I think in both scenarios, you're looking at a situation where they were unfortunately unable to grow within our own country. And women and all people actually need to be able to grow in their positions to feel like they bring value and have purpose. And the fact that we don't have a pro league in Canada where these women maybe could have coached speaks to the fact that there are limited opportunities for women at the top. If there were to be a pro women's league, I think they might have been convinced to stay.
Yeah, we talk about that glass ceiling, or at this point, it's a cement ceiling for them. They weren't able to continue to grow within our own country. And I think that sends a powerful message to those of us that aren't even as experienced as those two. What does that say for the rest of us? How far can we grow in this country if arguably two of the best can't?
Yeah, it does seem like, I mean, from universities, everyone goes to the States if they try and get a scholarship. That's what you did. So you hear a lot of female players going down there for an education. Then in terms of trying to play, make some money out of it. I know of a girl that I had worked with in Ottawa who went to France and she played in France, making a living playing there, and you went to Finland. And it seems like a lot of our Canadian girls, if they want to pursue soccer, some sort of career outside of coaching, they've got to leave Canada. I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, it all comes from trying to get sponsorship and money. Yeah, give us your take on that. How are you, Hollie?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a room to grow within our pathway. I don't think it's fair to say that it should end at League One at this point for women. I think it's a great step forward. League One's still pretty new, but I do think that there needs to be something else. Now we're starting to see it with the men with the CPL. So I hope that's something we can learn and grow from and see the benefit that it can give to the men in this country and the men specifically in Ontario. What can that do? What would it look like if it were to be on the women's side? I think we're starting to see a lot of great leagues pop up around the world, NWSL being one of them. You can see the support is there, the interest is there, the quality of players are there. So it's just a matter of how we get that here. How can we provide that platform for our players? I don't know that answer, but I think obviously in best case scenario, do I think it could be a successful league? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to just elaborate on that as well. John, you mentioned that a lot of our top women have to leave if they want to stay involved in high levels of the game. And what happens when you have these top women leave is that they're no longer available on a daily basis to inspire our players. So maybe it really isn't that much of a surprise that our players are dropping out in their teams when they don't have any tangible role models that are able to influence them on a daily basis, right? So I think that would have a huge impact if we could keep our role models more local and engaging our community on a day-to-day basis. I think that would be super powerful.
Got a question here. Would offering Canadian scholarships perhaps be a better first step than a women's league? And I see you were in the university game. What's your take on that question?
Yeah, I was probably one of the only players on my teams growing up that had absolutely no interest in going to the States. And in recent years, as we've watched the states evolve politically, that's only really furthered that notion that I don't really want to be there. But I had an amazing experience in Canada with soccer. The quality of player is high. I think there's a huge misconception that, you know, the best players leave, meaning that, you know, there's only the mediocre middle left in Canada. That's not the case at all. We went down to the States for a couple preseason games, and we held our own. We played like Yale, a couple of the really top schools there, and, you know, it was close. It was a close game. And I think keeping players in Canada, yeah, it's a good point. I think that's always going to be a philosophical argument, and parents and coaches might need a little bit of an adjustment in their perspective on that. Maybe we should do a little bit more education about what youth sports can do for our players, because another problem that we have when we send our players to the States is that when they come back, their degrees are not as valuable as they would be if they were Canadian degrees. And I've seen lots of my teammates go to the States for 2 years, come back, and then have to restart in the Canadian system. So they're actually just losing time. I think that's a great question. And I mean, I would definitely endorse the Canadian pathway, but I also know that there's a lot of value in going to the States at a high level play as well.
Are they offering, or Canadian University offering some sort of financial help for potential female varsity soccer players?
Yeah. I got a scholarship almost every year. It's
Okay.
not as much as you would think it is in the States, because our tuition also isn't as high, and it maxes out at about $4,500 per year. That's the max you can get in the OUA, at least. I'm not sure about other provinces. And we had a variety of players actually get that $4,500 a year. And that's actually part of an initiative that Guelph did that's called She's Got Game, and they did fundraising specifically to match sponsorships for both women and men.
So there is an incentive for Canadian girls to actually go to Canadian universities and play soccer. That's really good news, I think, for Canadians. And another question here, and it says, what about organizations like MLSC, Toronto FC, and I'm sure Vancouver and Montreal of getting, starting women's teams and programs? Any news on that, either Hollie or AC?
I know recently the MLSC has just announced that they're putting in, I don't know the exact number, I don't want to say incorrectly, but putting in millions of dollars to this campaign called Change the Game. And that's directly towards youth in sport. So it might not be directly, females in the game, but I think that's definitely an area of growth that's huge. That's going to help, because at the end of the day, if we don't have young female players coming in, our pathway and our model gets smaller and smaller. So I think that was a great thing to read, was that MLSE is taking the time and the money to invest in youth and sport. I think that's going to have a positive outcome and outlook for our sport in general, and also hopefully females in sport. I assume your question is more so directed, though, about maybe having TFC develop some sort of women's division, MLS developing some sort of women's division. Again, these are all great points, and it just goes to show that I'm not the only one thinking it. I know AC and I have had those conversations, and you can tell that people want it. So it's just a matter of how to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, what are the kids watching on TV, and is there sponsorship money behind it? Pretty much, I think the pro teams want some money. I'm just going to share my screen again, and properly here. And so we did a session. I don't know if you can see that. Mm-hmm. We did a session, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Phenomenal session. If you get a chance to go watch it, Alf de Blasses and Jeremy St. Louis. Alf is in the media in Toronto, has been with TLN and numerous TV stations, and Jeremy St. Louis with CBS Sports. And they talked about how the whole game is changing from how the consumers are changing the game. So if you get a chance to go see that webinar, we do have it in our members only section. But I'm just going to show you a little part as he's talking, how the viewing the game is changing a little bit. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. You have to let me know. Can you hear anything there? Okay.
No.
That could be a problem. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to solve it in a couple of minutes. But what Alf was saying in his this part of the lecture is that the TV stations like TSN and ESPN, whatever, are looking at getting more content from female soccer. So they're showing women's soccer, the NWSL games, the Super League, and then I've tuned in to TSN, and every once in a while catch Man United versus Chelsea or whatnot. And apparently the ratings are really, certainly during the pandemic, when there wasn't much else going on, they did very well, much better than they expected. So I think this is great news, and I wish you could hear what Alf has to say. But if you get a chance, go check out his his session. And as a coach myself, I've gone to camps, and we might have 100 kids there, boys, girls mixed in. And at the beginning, and you only have 5 days to work with kids, you give them nicknames, and so because you can't remember all the players' names, and quite often, I would say, oh, there's Messi because he's wearing a Messi jersey. I'm talking about maybe a 10-year-old kid or 12-year-old kid. Oh, there's there's Miller, or there's Weinsteiger, or whoever. So, but even when some female players are coming, they're even wearing Messi's. They're not wearing Sinclair's. They're not wearing, some of the top female players. Once in a while, you'll see Morgan from the U.S. So we've got to get these girls maybe to a younger age, starting to support some of their favorite female athletes and watching games as well. Any thoughts on that? Start with Hollie.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, John. And I think myself as a coach, it's something I definitely encourage my players to do as well. There's a lot of great female players out there in these divisions that you were mentioning that they should be watching. But I think that it's not readily available enough. There's the odd game on TV. It's not broadcasted enough. It's not marketed enough. It's not promoted enough. So it's not as easy as saying, hey, turn on the TV and watch a game. You really almost have to search for it and put it in your calendar saying, okay, there's finally a women's game on today. So I think there is a balance of making yourself available to watch these games when they are available to watch them. But there's also should be more. There should be more content. We should be able to watch these games. I can't speak myself because I don't have cable, so I watch everything online. But there's a lot that's probably missed because it's not marketed properly.
Are you able to watch a lot of female games online?
I'm able to watch like highlights and stuff,
Right.
or through the FA, we're able to watch a couple games online. But even we were talking this week, it's going to be challenging to even watch the She Believes Cup and watch our own country play, because it's not going to be on TV live. We're gonna have to watch it a couple days after the fact.
Right.
So AC, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, because I know that's an important thing.
It's not just a soccer problem, right? It's a women's sports problem generally. I mean, the number you always hear floating around is that 4% of sports coverage is about women, which is, that's insanely low. 4% is tiny, but without the proper marketing and investment, it's not going to be available for young girls to watch. And I think traditionally, if you think about who gets girls to watch soccer, I was usually the only person on my teams that watched soccer growing up, like one of the few that had deep understanding of the game. And I watched men's soccer because women's soccer wasn't available, right? So I think that's going to be a lot of behavior change, also hopefully done with the help of coaches and leaders and parents within those young girls' lives who can encourage them and be like, okay, let's find the stream this weekend. Let's sit down, have brunch, and watch soccer this morning. I think that's got a big part to do with it. It's just easier for boys to find role models that look like themselves on TV. It's much, much harder for girls. And we also can't blame girls for having no interest in watching a bunch of men run around a field chasing a ball, knowing that they'll never be on TV doing that, right? So I watch women's soccer and men's soccer on the weekend sometimes, and my girlfriend's always like, can we watch women's soccer? Like, I don't want to watch men. And I mean, I have to agree with it. It's a little bit more rewarding to watch women play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough one, because I do see, when I go to a TFC game, I do see probably more females there watching a TFC game than, say, going to a Blue Jay game or another sport. So I think they're watching live on television. I remember when I started my coaching a long time ago, there wasn't any soccer on TV. No man, no woman. So, the coaches are, I'd have to tell my players, oh, you're Zico in this scrimmage, and you're whatever, Gary, or, so we're giving them names of players that they couldn't watch on TV. And then they slowly, as the game showed up on television, we get some videotapes. Sometimes the coach, I think, plays an important role in being the marketer to their small team of 16. So, maybe if the coaches don't know who the stars are, the women coaches, or the coaches who coach girls, maybe they should take on a stronger leadership role in educating their own players, and maybe saying, okay, there's a game, I've researched, there's a game on a Saturday at 10, Manchester's playing Chelsea, our women's national team's on this channel. Hollie, what do you think? I know you're dealing with a lot of coaches there in Pickering, and you find that maybe the coaches aren't doing enough to promote women's game and players.
I think it's all about just making it relevant for your players. I don't think you're going to have a greater impact saying, hey, just watch this game. I think you really have to make it personable for your players. So something that I did with my 08 girls was I actually went online and I tried to find a women's role model for them within the game. So it's not just, hey, go watch this game. It's, hey, I think you play a lot like this player on Portland. She has a lot of the same characteristics that you do. I think it'd be great if you watch some highlight clips of her. I spent the time going through that and matching a player to a professional player, and then giving them a YouTube link to view. Maybe it was a minute, maybe 3 minutes at most of each clip. But then it starts to have a little bit more impact on them, thinking, hey, that's actually something that I do, or hey, that's something I could be. And it becomes a little bit more relevant that way, rather than just saying, hey, go watch this game. I can't say that I don't know what long-term impact it's had yet, because it's something we just did a couple weeks ago. But I do believe that if someone did that for me, I know that's how I would approach it. It would mean a lot more to me than watching any game. And I think that's why we're encouraging these players to watch games, is to learn from the game, to find these female role models, because they do exist. They are out there. There's no doubt about it, that there's great female players out there. It's just a matter of understanding what to watch and who to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a great idea with finding clips for female players, because I really do believe the coach is very influential. And sometimes, the coach is, they really look up to the coach. So even if they don't have a female coach, happens to be a male coach, I think in coaching girls, it should be looking at promoting players.
Yeah.
There's a question here.
Sorry, John. Just to touch on that, within our own communities, we have women's League One teams. We have senior teams in OPDL. So I think that might be something a little bit more tangible for these coaches that are listening, is if you have a U8 to U12 girls group, go together to go watch your League One women's team play, or go watch the older OPDL girls play. There can be leaders within your own community that you can demonstrate to these younger females. And that's something so tangible. That's somebody wearing the same jersey, same logo, within the same club, practicing on the same fields. These are real life role models. So I think that that's a good way for coaches who maybe don't have the time to search YouTube like I did for a few hours. But it's easy to say, hey, let's go watch our OPDL girls play. So let's go watch our senior women play.
Absolutely. And in fact, one of our listeners just mentioned exactly the same thing that you did. The other thing that he mentioned, or she, I'm not quite sure who made the comment, Marisa, I believe she's one of our members. And she says, from the point of view of getting jerseys, female players, that is so difficult. And I know that getting a Sinclair, official Sinclair name and number jerseys is not that easy. It's very hard to go to any sports store and get the exact font of Sinclair, because I don't know if it's Canadian Soccer makes it difficult, or the licensing agreements that they have. It's a lot harder than getting, a Messi or even Alfonso Davies. Getting female names, the official font, especially for Canada, is very difficult. And I don't know if maybe there could be pressure put on certainly Canadian Soccer Association to license the fonts, so every girl could be wearing a Sinclair or whoever, Canon or whatever. AC, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a strong point. I tried to get a Jessie Fleming Chelsea jersey. It was a real pain in the butt, and it was really expensive. I had to ship it from England. I mean, I did it because I think it's worth it, but I mean, I also work, so I have a little bit of money to do so. Yeah, making anything to make those role models a little bit more tangible is going to go a long way. And like those micro steps, like that doesn't seem like it should be that hard. So why can't we start there?
Just a couple more things I wanted to throw out there. And I want to just go back to the grassroots, and Hollie, you're involved in even down to the recreational players, because usually they start at recreation before you kind of bring up into a more competitive stream. What do you see in your club? The percentages of females playing at, say, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old before they get into more competitive stream. Are there, is it almost, 40, 60, 50, 50? What are the percentages you see boys, girls?
I would say much lower. When we're talking about U8s, which is our first year of competitive, it's incredibly challenging to even field a girls team at that age.
Really?
And that really shouldn't be, considering, you have from U3 to U7 to build that love of the sport. But when we're entering that competitive age group, or even looking at the recreational side, it's far and few between. There might be 1 or 2 girls on a recreational team, which the rest of them obviously boys. Just comparing numbers, I remember my first U8 girls team. This is my first year as a head coach. I had 3 girls come out to the tryouts, or we say tryouts, but open practices, let's say. I had 3 of them come out. So what am I going to do? Am I not going to have a team? Do I have to offer them something else? Being a head coach for the first time, I had no idea I would even run into these challenges. And then you look over across the field, boys training at the same time, they can probably have 3 teams. So I think it takes a different level of care to make these girls in the game, help them fall in love with the game. We really have to take the time to create relationships, create connections, and make them feel like they're going to have fun. At the end of the day, these are kids. These are young girls, young boys. They're going to do what they think is fun. So what are we doing in our environments to make sure that it is that? Obviously, soccer is not going to be the same thing for everybody. So we really have to take the time to find out why our players are playing the game. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about grassroots, is make it fun. Something that I've taken on at Pickering was to do our female mentorship program. So I take about 3 or 4 junior coaches either from like the U15, 16 OPDL group, or maybe League One. These are coaches that want to start an intro to coaching and start their coaching journeys. So what I do is I work with these coaches and we work together within the recreational setting. So between U3 to U6, their position is called a game leader. So their job is to design, deliver, and create the best environment possible for these young children. So then you're getting these junior coaches who are females to now act in a role as a coach. And then you see the younger generations, you see a 3-year-old girl who now has for her first time playing soccer, she has a female coach. So I hope that has an impact, both for the player in that age group, but also that junior coach who's getting the introduction to coaching. And I hope that we start to see more females continue to stay in the game, especially at a young age, because that's when we're going to see the long-term changes. There's only so many female players we can bring back who've already quit. But something we can do is help build and introduce soccer into the lives of our youngest generation.
Right. And how do you see, I mean, there's some cultural issues as well that I didn't even know existed. I remember watching a movie called Pelada. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Great film produced by the documentary, a couple of U.S. college players, a female and a male. They went around the world trying to play pickup soccer, and they got to, they played South America, South Africa. They went to Europe, and both the male college player and the female were able to play. And then they got to Iran, and the female was not really allowed to join in. And then by the end of the film, she was able to sneak in and play a little bit. But are you finding some cultural issues where maybe the parents don't want the females to play soccer?
I personally haven't experienced anything like that, but maybe because those families just aren't in our programs. But I know it definitely does exist. And I think that's where all we can do on our side is just educate. Start to tell people, what the positives are of the sport, what it can offer you, the life skills it can offer you. We're not out here to change culture, people's cultures, that's written in their blood. But if we can promote what the game can bring to these young girls, I think that's what we're going to find our win. And again, like we said, our small step forward. I don't know, AC, if you have a different perspective or anything.
Yeah, it all starts with education. I can't personally say I've seen any of those cultural differences either. We're pretty lucky we live in a pretty progressive country, like as a whole. But it all starts with education, and I would really recommend looking into a coaching module. It's called Keeping Girls in Sport. It's about $17. It's run by the Respect Group. I redid it again a couple of weeks ago, and it's an amazing module. I recommend it to everyone who's hoping to learn a little bit more about the differences between boys and girls, especially at the younger ages, because we do have to acknowledge that there are some differences. So that's something I would definitely recommend. And then coming back to the role of male allies, I think we definitely can't do it without male allies. And sometimes there's a little bit of a perception that, it's women against men when really we need everyone to be pulling in the same direction. So I would encourage all the male allies out there to really do their best to make sure that they're not accepting any language that's maybe sexist or any comments that are sexist, whether that be in the boardroom, with your buddies at the bar, whatever, making sure that really we're not accepting those behaviors, and that, coming back to Hollie's point, we're trying to expose our girls to as many female role models as possible, whether that be bringing in a guest coach or just coming to a youth sports or a League One game. I think that could really go a long way.
That's great answers, folks. We are getting close to the end of our time. A quick question on female referees while we're at it. How do you see that going on? I don't see a lot of female referees, but I do see some changes there. Hollie, maybe you want to take that one on.
I know they experience the same low percentage of representation. I assume it comes from the same belief that women aren't meant to be in those positions, whether it comes from us directly or not. But I know the percentage is very low. I don't know the exact percentage, but even being in our League One setting AC, I think we're actually lucky enough to have some female referees and match officials. I've participated in games where all 3 referees were women. So they're definitely there, they're out there, but we can definitely have more. And I know Ontario Soccer does a really good job with their match official development. And it's just getting the word out there again, encouraging women to join within these organizations, get it on the ground level, whether it be coaching, playing, officiating, find your pathway within the sport. Because there's a lot of different ways that we can be involved in this sport, but I do think there needs to be more of us everywhere. There needs to be more women at every table in every organization, not just coaches. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I know it's definitely an issue the match officials are experiencing as well.
Great. AC, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think with the match officials, like Hollie said, the percentage is about the same. I think it's about 25%. Which I personally am just sick of accepting 25%. Like that's not good enough. We need to be aiming for above 25% in all of these different conversations. But we have been able to get several top Canadian female referees officiating in big World Cups and big competitions, which is certainly a positive thing. And I find it kind of mirrors the problem of the national team in officiating, meaning that we have a couple of really amazing, like top world-class candidates, but then beyond that, what are we doing to elevate the rest of the women who aren't in the Women's World Cup or in the women's national team? What are we doing to elevate the rest of the many women who are involved in our game? I think there's still a bit of a disparity between the top and the bottom.
Yeah, one of the questions that I think we had talked about earlier is how can we convert more girls to become fans of the women's game? Any thoughts on what we can do besides things we haven't already discussed that we can get more girls becoming fans of the women's game? Kind of finish up on that.
Hollie, you want to go?
Mm-hmm. It's a tough one. I think there's little steps that we can take, and then there's steps that are going to take more than a day to do. There's goals that we need to have and set for ourselves as women, that we want to see that 50-50 representation of coaches. We want to see the 50-50 match officials. So I think it's just a matter of deciding what our goal is, working backwards from there. And I think we've taken a good step in the right direction with this Ontario Soccer C license, which is excellent to hear. So already we're going to have 40 more women with the C license within Ontario, which is great. But at the end of the day, speaking as a grassroots director, I think we need to encourage more of the younger generation, get them in on the ground level, spend time with them, understand why they're playing the game, invest in our women's sports. And it's not gonna take one step. It's gonna take a lot of us coming together collectively. And I think I just wanted to mention that AC and I are part of a couple actually women groups now through various platforms, but through those platforms, I think AC, you can maybe touch on too, is that I personally have felt so much more supported and uplifted and empowered more than I ever have before, just knowing that these women are in this sport with me, that I'm not the only one. So I think if we can make that rope a little bit bigger, collect this community of women in our sport, we can achieve a lot more if we come together.
Yeah, to me, it comes down to creating a more equitable system. A lot of what is going wrong is by design, not by lack of interest. And to me, a top-down approach will help solve some of those problems at the bottom, like you were talking about with the fandom, John. And yeah, Holly, I can only echo that. Sometimes it feels like you're alone out there as a woman in sport, but if we can get connected with each other, we're going to be able to do a lot of amazing things. And what we did with the League One Player Advisory Group is just one example of how a few people were able to really make a big impact. So I would just encourage all the women out there to, you know, message Holly or I, message all the women in soccer that you know, and start working towards something.
Great, and we are running out of time because we've kind of come past our hour. Just before we go, I did want to just throw in the money that you guys raised was by selling posters, and the drawings of the poster was done by a friend of yours, and I know her as well, Mandela Smith. And I think I've seen some of her work, and she's a great artist. And so let's just a shout out to her. Maybe you want to say a bit more about Mandela's art. And
yeah, Mandela, we met on our middle school soccer team. So a bit of a full circle moment. Yeah, she's an incredible artist, incredible woman. And check her out if you want to see some of those drawings. They're on our website, wsoccer.ca.
What was that website again?
wsoccer.ca.
Okay, wsoccer.ca. We'll maybe send it out in one of our future email blasts that we do to coaches. And so I'd like to thank again AC Lang and Hollie Babut for being guests. We hope that you get more involved in our organization and possibly bring in more female coaches. And we certainly want to have more female coaches even presenting some of the things that we've been doing. You know, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you, and as I say, I've known you as well, and you know, hopefully nothing but good things for female soccer. And I do think that, you know, just watching more female soccer on TV, you know, I think the excitement of our national team always being challenging for some sort of medal. Just the NWSL in the US, the convention that the US has, which is run by United Soccer Coaches. I remember when I first went there might have been 2,000 coaches, and maybe I saw 1 or 2 females 30 years ago. Now, you know, when they have 10, 11,000 participants at these annual conventions, of course, this year they had to cancel it. Next year it's in Kansas. There's a great percentage of female coaches. And so I do think it's looking greater. Again, thanks very much. Our next Behind the Bench webinar, actually I'll be presenting my goal scoring course that I run across the North America. And then further down we have a goalkeeping session. We've got Richard Bucciarelli, who'll be doing course on fitness as well. The follow-up last 2 sessions that he did. We have an author who's written a book on fictional book, phenomenal, exciting book. We will be talking to him, and we're looking to bring a lot more people. So again, thanks very much for being part of Behind the Bench, and everybody take it easy. Have a great rest of the month.
Thanks for having us, John.
Thank you, John.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.